Welcome to Smart Wealth with Joshua.
Your daily stock analysis and catalyst talk. Today we're looking at Bitmine Immersion Technologies, BMNR.
If you find our talks useful, please consider subscribe, like, and comment underneath. So, let's get into it. We are looking at one of the, most unusual balance sheets I think I've ever come across.
It's a real head-scratcher on the surface. We're talking about Bitmine Immersion Technologies.
And really, it feels like we're looking at a $14 billion crypto hedge fund that's just disguised as a small mining company.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And that core disconnect is really the whole story here. This is all about the actual asset value versus the operational metrics.
And there are some huge catalysts coming up that are about to force those two numbers a lot closer together.
Exactly. So if you're tracking this space, really understanding BMNR is essential.
Okay, let's start with the elephant in the room then, the crypto treasury. The market cap right now is sitting at $13.26 billion. That's a huge number.
It is. But here's the thing. It immediately poses a challenge because that market cap is actually smaller than their liquid assets.
Smaller.
Yeah. When you add up all their crypto and cash, you get a number closer to $14 billion. The company has more in liquid assets than its entire valuation.
Which to any value investor just screams undervalued. So where is that $14 billion concentrated? Let's unpack that.
It is. I mean, it's overwhelmingly in Ethereum. They hold a massive 4.168 million ETH.
Wow.
At current prices, that ETH alone is worth around $13 billion. And then you have almost $1 billion in cash on top of that, about $988 million. But the real headline is the ETH.
It has to be.
That single position represents 3.45% of the entire global supply of Ethereum.
3.5% held by one company. That is just staggering. So, okay, if the math is that simple, more assets than market cap, why hasn't the market closed that gap? What's the discount?
Well, that's where the traditional financial metrics come in, and they really confuse the picture.
Oh, so?
If you look at their price-to-earnings ratio, their PE, it's insanely low. It's 2.33.
Okay, so that suggests a huge bargain.
Right. But then you look at their price-to-sales, or price-to-book, and they look really high, which signals caution. And that is the central accounting distortion we're seeing.
So walk me through that. Why the super low PE but a high PS?
The low PE is because the appreciation of their crypto assets flows into their earnings per share. So in the last quarter, for example, they missed on revenue. It was only $1.32 million.
Tiny.
Right, tiny. But they had a massive EPS beat of $15.90. That EPS number is basically just the mark-to-market value of their $13 billion in ETH.
I see. So the earnings look huge because their assets went up in value.
Exactly. Now look at the PS. The numerator, the market cap, is based on the huge treasury. But the denominator, sales, is only that tiny mining revenue. So the ratio is completely skewed. The market is valuing the balance sheet, but the sales figures are from this little operational business.
Got it. So that disconnect is where the opportunity or the confusion lies. We have to look past the mining revenue and focus on what they're doing with that colossal asset base.
Precisely. Which brings us to their competitive moat and, their future revenue drivers.
If the treasury is the main asset, how do they protect it? And more importantly, how do they plan to turn 3.5% of the world's ETH into actual recurring revenue?
Their moat is just pure scale. It's institutional flow. They're the world's largest corporate ETH holder, period. That gives them instant credibility. And they're the largest fresh money buyer, always accumulating.
So they become the default entry point for any other institution that wants to get into ETH treasury management.
You got it. It's a powerful network effect.
It's very tempting to draw a parallel to MicroStrategy with Bitcoin. Is that the playbook they're following?
That's the perfect analogy for the accumulation part. But there is a key difference. MicroStrategy uses its Bitcoin to raise debt to buy more Bitcoin.
Right. They add leverage risk.
Yeah, exactly. Bitmine, while they are accumulating aggressively now, is planning a pivot to a yield model, which you could argue is safer and more sustainable long-term.
And how do their physical operations, the immersion-cooled data centers in Trinidad and Texas, feed into that?
The immersion cooling is their technical moat. It's their IP. It ensures maximum energy efficiency, drives down the cost of their actual mining. So while they aren't relying on mining for their valuation...
Yeah, they are using that superior tech to launch other services.
Exactly. Mining as a service, or MAS, and advisory services.
So they're turning their operational know-how into a recurring fee structure.
Precisely. They'll manage mining for other companies.
Yeah.
And on the advisory side, I mean, if you hold 3.5% of an asset, who better to ask for advice on how to manage it?
It's brilliant. They're monetizing their IP and their balance sheet expertise at the same time. But the really big catalyst, the game changer, is the staking launch, right?
Absolutely. The big one is the Mavan staking launch, which is scheduled for Q1 2026.
And when you stake almost 4.2 million ETH, you are not just getting a little bit back. What does Mavan do for them?
Mavan fundamentally changes their entire financial profile. They go from relying on ETH appreciation, which is volatile, to becoming a high-yield recurring revenue generator.
Like a utility.
Almost. If that launch is successful, the predictable passive income from staking yields alone would instantly legitimize their valuation. It's the transition from speculation to utility.
Okay, that's the long-term picture, but the market is reacting right now. Let's talk about the current momentum. What's the stock doing?
The momentum is just relentless. The stock has been surging up 3.6% to 4% recently, mostly on news of more ETH buys. Today it's trading in the $32 to, say, $32.66 range. Very bullish.
And the 52-week range is huge, from around $3 up to $161. That tells you the market is validating this turnaround.
It signals a strong recovery,
Right.
and, the volume is there to back it up. We're seeing 42 million shares traded versus a 41 million average. This isn't just retail hype.
So this is institutional buying pressure.
For sure. The stock rocketed 248% in 2025. The quantitative mood is strongly bullish, and it's all being driven by that institutional cluster buying we're seeing.
Okay, so who's stepping in? Can you give us some names?
Yeah, the most notable one is Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Group. They acquired 3.7 million shares. That's a position worth nearly $200 million.
Wow. Okay, that's a serious vote of confidence.
It is. And Robeco also stepped in, buying about $7.3 million worth. When institutions are deploying that kind of capital, it signals they are buying into the long-term vision, into the Mavan yield story.
And they agree that the current price doesn't reflect the full asset value.
Exactly. And you see that reflected in the analyst targets. The consensus is a buy rating with an average price target of $43.
Okay, a $43 target versus a $32 price today. That's significant upside, and it's clearly based on that $14 billion treasury, not the mining revenue.
Right. It suggests there's still room for upward revisions, especially once PVAN comes online.
All right, let's get to the immediate catalysts. The pressure cooker events. What's happening in the next 48 hours?
The calendar is incredibly front-loaded. It starts today, January 14th.
Today is the earnings report.
Correct. And after that mixed quarter last time, the bull market is going to be looking right past the raw numbers and focusing entirely on forward guidance.
They want updates on Mavan.
Updates on Mavan, timelines for Moz, any color they can get on the revenue acceleration story.
And then tomorrow is the big one. Tomorrow could decide everything.
Tomorrow, January 15th, is the annual stockholder meeting. And the only thing that really matters is proposal #2.
The shareholder vote on authorized shares.
That's the one. It is the gatekeeper for their entire accumulation strategy. If it fails, the growth thesis just stalls out.
Which brings us right to the bear case. Chairman Tom Lee specifically warned about this vote failing. How real is that risk?
It's the #1 risk. If proposal #2 fails, they can't raise capital to buy more ETH. The engine stops.
So what's the mitigation? Why is the stock rallying right into it?
The mitigation is what we just talked about, the huge institutional cluster buying. These big players, the ones with the votes, are buying the stock before the meeting. They're signaling they expect it to pass.
Okay, so they're front-running a positive outcome. What about the other big risk? Just ETH price volatility or another revenue mess?
Legitimate concerns. But the market has already, I think, priced that in. Everyone knows the mining revenue is tiny. The stock's value is pegged to the $14 billion treasury. A dip in ETH is just volatility. The 43 car already reflects that massive asset cushion.
They're playing a different game.
A totally different game.
So let's bring it all together. The huge asset base, institutional validation, the pivot to staking yield, this immediate vote. What's the final investment thesis for BMNR?
I'd give it a bullish score of 9 out of 10. The pitch is simple. BMNR is the premier institutionally backed ETH treasury play. It is trading at a discount to its liquid assets. And Mavan is the catalyst to unlock a sustainable, high-yield revenue stream.
And how should people be thinking about the time horizon here?
Well, you have two real approaches. For a shorter-term trader, it's a swing trade into the January 15th vote. If that proposal passes, you should see an immediate positive reaction.
And for a longer-term investor?
It's a multi-quarter hold. You're betting on the successful launch and ramp-up of the Mavan staking program and the eventual re-rating of the company as a yield-generating powerhouse.
Okay, let's unpack this with one final thought. If BMNR pulls this off, if they successfully leverage their 4.17 million ETH to launch Maven and create massive staking yield. How quickly could we see their model fundamentally change how all large corporations view crypto as a treasury asset?
And that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
I mean, are we watching the birth of a new corporate finance playbook, one where major cryptocurrencies become the default, yielding treasury asset for everyone from Apple to Exxon?
That is precisely the paradigm shift Bitmine is trying to pioneer. If they can generate predictable yield on 3.5% of a global asset, they're providing a blueprint that very few major corporations will be able to ignore for long.
A really unique and fascinating setup. Thank you for walking us through the whole structure here.
My pleasure. We hope this analysis helps you navigate these complex asset-driven stories out there.